My name's Kyle Steed. I'm an artist. I live here in Dallas, Texas. I do everything with my hands: painting, muraling, drawing. Yeah, and I'm here today with Nostalgia and Noise. I'm stoked to be here.
So I wanted to get into this because during my internet deep dive, I kind of found that a lot of people in Dallas might be familiar with your work, even if they're not immediately involved in like that art scene, just because of how recognizable your style is with murals and whatnot. Um, and so this was so funny. I was like having lunch at 60 Vines, and I remember looking over, I remember a distinct moment looking over and being like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. It's like a long piece that's with like brown canvas and like the black outline. And then in preparing for the interview, I looked at your website and I was like, wait a minute, that's you. And kind of the same with like Warby Parker. Like you become really recognizable through your art, just kind of these big, beautiful, colorful murals around Dallas. How do you kind of marry the contributions you have with commission-based things and with kind of those other more essential features of who you are as an artist, or do you see them as different?
I don't think about it so much like how do I balance it. I think I just enjoy both sides of my work, commercially and otherwise, personally. I think I've strived for a long time to how to integrate both more, or maybe just how to connect them together better. I think when I started, because I have a design background, I'm not classically trained. I didn't go to art school. I don't have a degree, which I'm really happy about now. I think there was a moment in time where I kind of felt less than for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe there's just like a sense when you're younger, you have a real need to prove yourself. But I've always loved people, and I think part of like the most important part of business is people. And I like the dealings with them. I mean, it's why I think I've always had a tough time being represented by someone else, because I want to be the person representing me. And that's the path that I've been carving out for myself, and the one that I hope to continue. But yeah, I think commercially driven work, murals, that sort of vein, satisfies a certain itch that I like, and it is more kind of design driven in a sense that there is a very practical approach. It's very much more linear in the sense of how the process works, and getting approvals, and making sure everyone on both sides is satisfied, so there's no guesswork when it comes to integrating and implementing the final art. Versus when I'm in the studio by myself, there's no one asking me, it's limitless, essentially. I'm limited by my own imagination. And that's satisfying in a totally different way. Mm-hmm. But stylistically, I think there's been a convergence over the years, and I feel like I'm finding a sweet spot now, but I know something will blow up or evolve into something new where I think I want there to be such a more synonymous look between when I put something large on a wall versus when I hang something on a wall small.
I think that's really interesting that you brought that up, because I was also not just wondering about like the scale of different pieces, but how you go from something as technical as typography and like graphic design to something just like almost a completely different style on that larger scale. I think what immediately came to mind when I was looking at your work was that Texas Rangers piece.
They had referenced an earlier work that I had done for Starbucks, which was these very tight line drawings, illustrations, and they wanted to tell this whole story of Arlington. And I was like, how the hell do you tell a story about Arlington? But they gave me all the info. I was like, okay. So there was like research and getting into the history a little bit, which is kind of an interesting part of the process. And then how now do I distill that and how do I translate into my own visual language? Very cerebral in the sense of like just wanting everything to make sense and tell this like larger narrative, and being for such a high profile client, one that has like tons of visibility in that stadium, it was really important that everything was just exactly where it needed to be. And I don't do those sorts of installations anymore. They don't really feel as exciting, and it's like they don't feel like they push me as much anymore. So I've kind of scaled back, or if I do get a request, I kind of just like either try and steer them a different direction or just kindly decline. But yeah, in the beginning when I was doing mural work, like my first work, it's not my largest anymore, but it's on that Trinity Strand Trail right there in Design District. Yeah, it's the play on the JFK quote. And that one I used a projector at night to map out like the whole phrase. And then it took me probably a couple weeks. And it's just huge black letters on that white wall. But still, it was like, I felt so nervous and anxious to start it and wanting it to be perfect. And I think that carried on for a number of years, where I was still using projections in the beginning until I finally wanted to start pushing myself to freehand, which is what I do now with all my murals. I just, like, I'll have a reference, but then I just freehand the design on the wall, because it's freed me up to not be so perfect and not be so trapped by technology, to want to recreate it like a one-to-one. And I think it leaves more interpretation and room to, if I can trust myself to put something down on paper, I can equally trust myself to make it larger on a wall. And it may not be exactly how the smaller version looks, but it still captures the essence. And I think that process should involve room to be a little bit interpretive and make like on-the-spot decisions.
I don't think I've ever thought about it in that sense, like an idea of just to trust the skill that you've built and like just learn to trust yourself in the thing that you're doing.
I think it's a lot about trust. I think that's a lot of our own self-limitations, is we don't trust ourselves enough, and where I haven't trusted myself enough in the beginning, and then you can use certain things along the way, but it's like you build confidence over time. That's why practice is like, it's not about getting to perfection, it's just about part of the process and continuing on. But the more that we do those reps, the stronger we get in something. Yeah.
Do you see that kind of like leaning off technology as one of your challenges?
I feel like pretty comfortable in that spot right now, social media aside, which is a love-hate, but I don't really start any sort of design or drawings. My iPad is a tool that I like to use sometimes, but I still love, nothing replaces paper and pencils or pens. Those very just rudimentary, basic elements, those tools are so wonderful to me. I feel more connected. I feel like I'm able to translate whatever is coming through onto that paper more easily. And I think that's just because I do have more practice, more experience.
I like that we're kind of bringing up that idea of feel and tactile. Because I was curious about one of your recent collaborations as well. I want to make sure I'm getting these names right. With Ghost Town and West. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so pretty effortlessly. My friend Trevor Paulus, an amazing photographer, incredible, one of my favorites, lives in Dallas. He started during COVID playing with clay and wanting to branch outside of his own comfort zone, which is photography, which he knows and loves and has excelled in. And so he started making his own vases and cups and things, and he just wanted this sort of tactile experience himself. So he's, over the last few years, built up that little brand, Bury Me West, and has, I think, been fairly successful in it. And we started talking earlier this year about he wanted to do some new shirts and stuff, and I was like, what if we worked together? And I did the design, and he loved that idea. Friend of his, and I'm blanking. Providence in Rhode Island. He's a screen printer, also creative director, but he has his own screen printing shop. So we went up there a couple months ago, and he had all the plates done, and I custom mixed all the colors for the screen print. Yeah, so it was like a really neat team effort. And then it was cool to travel with my buddy Trevor, and like that's his hometown, that's where he's from. So I don't know, just kind of felt like it had this real meaningful, more than just making a design,
Right.
you know, but it was like getting to see where he's from and meeting his friend Pete, who did the Ghost Town studio. Yeah, and then now the shirts and the prints are gonna come out next week, but he's also making a series of new vases, and those will probably come out December, January.
I like that you're bringing up this idea of like visiting Trevor and his kids and not just like working with him, like visiting them in Rhode Island and that scenery, and also like being from Alabama.
What about being from Alabama?
No diss there. But I really wanted to and also you spent a lot of time in like Marfa as well. So I really wanted to get into that idea of like how nature and different sceneries play into your art.
I think about space and location all the time in my work. I think it's informative, maybe without me even having to think about it. What draws me now to Marfa and that similar geographic locations in like desert is it's so arid, and there's a lot of room to, I think, just kind of clear your mind. There's no noise. I think that's something that's really important to me, is how quiet it is. It's just not possible living in a city, as much as you can try and create that, but the natural environment like that and just how open everything feels, I love that sense. You know, I grew up in North Alabama, so there's a lot of rolling hills, a lot of greenery, but I don't really think about that as home so much anymore. I think about it as a place I'm from. I feel like Texas is more or less my home now. But I started going to Marfa maybe 10 years ago or so now. And I love it every time I go back. I love Big Bend is out there, which is one of my favorite national parks. Yeah.
I think you're saying like a lot of interesting things with that meditative piece that you kind of get from places like Big Bend or Marfa or whatnot. And you said something on your website that, sorry, that's a little bit stalkery. You said something on your website that I thought was really powerful. And I think it was one of the taglines or one of the mission statements rather, was you said that, I want to make sure that I'm getting the wording right here. You said that your visual language embodies structural typographic design, stillness of the mind, illustration, and holistic healing modalities. And I think holistic healing modalities was really getting to me and like really speaking to me. Would you say more about that and kind of how you pulled that together?
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And I think there's a number of different ways of what that looks like. And it doesn't look the same every day, but I think there's practices of silent walking. Like I took a walk this morning, like not having anything in my ears, not listening to music. I think we're so consumed with media, not just media, sorry, but music or content, that it's so important, I find it for myself, to be of silent mind and just either letting my thoughts ramble or to just focus on something, whether that's sitting still or walking. I think those are both. I mean, I think meditation is just it looks so different. It has so many different forms. It doesn't come in one flavor. I think other things that go along with that have been like mushroom journeys, using plant medicine to kind of further instill like healing and opening my mind, opening my heart to certain things. Yeah, those have been really transformative.
This is like, some of your background is really interesting to me because we talk about a lot about this in nostalgia as well, as like pulling those, like the idea of ritual and the idea of something that you repeat every single day and that you stick to no matter what, as being like a meditation in and of itself. And so I was wondering, do you pull any of that kind of inspiration and any of that dedication from your military background as well?
My time in the military was such a weird moment of season of life. When I was 21 when I went in, and I was 25 when I got out, so I was super young. I learned a lot about discipline. I learned a lot about myself. I think things I didn't know I could do that I was able to overcome and achieve, which has carried over. I never felt, and I knew going into it, it was never a long-term commitment for me. Like, that lifestyle is not really conducive to any sort of creativity. I created during that time. I was heavily into photography. I painted a little bit. I'm always going to create no matter where you put me. I mean, that's just me. It's in me. And if I don't let it out, I get really cranky, and I'm not fun to be around. But as long as I'm like continuously like being use any analogy of funnel or just this vessel, if it's able to come out, then there's a release of, like, I don't know, is it serotonin, is it dopamine, is it what? But I feel significantly like lighter. I feel better. But there is discipline into it, and there is the hard lesson of doing it even when you don't feel like doing it. And those times when I push through the feelings, there's often, if not always, a lighter me on the other side. And that's what I love about this, and that's what I mean to go back talking about putting in the reps and doing the practice part of it, because there's no way to get better, and there's no way to overcome other than just the hard, laborious nature of it. Yeah.
No, and I think that, like, not relying on inspiration and kind of being dedicated to just showing up and doing it every single day, no matter what. I think that's something that, like, a lot of creatives need to hear, and that's, like, no diss, because also myself. But like,
yeah.
Like,
well, and I come from the same vein of, like, waiting on inspiration to strike and, like, sitting around, and it's just like, that's not how it works. And I even have a problem with inspiration, and I have a problem with the question of what inspires you. And I understand it's a valid question, and I understand sometimes people just often want to know, like, how do you even come up with this shit? Like, it's at a certain basic element, but part of me that doesn't believe in inspiration is just because I believe in the work ethic, and then if you are dedicated, if you are sincere about something, you're gonna show up and do it 7 days a week, like whatever it takes, regardless of how you feel about it.
100%.
Now, that doesn't discount. I think there's a nice balance to that same topic where there is an importance of rest, there's an importance of knowing when to take time away. And to recharge, and because I don't believe in hustle, I don't believe in, like, continuing just to grind day after day after day. Like, I think that wears you down and can even just, like, completely make you fall apart and, you know, not want to do it. So you have to have both. I think both are worthy to be sought after.